Oh, goody.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Zombies here again, and today we're back with another Marvel Snap video. So, OTA day as usual, but we're not really here for the main OTA stuff. We're here to talk about the updated ban list for the Grand Arena. So, if you want to see the OTA stuff, I'll just quickly go over it here, but I'm not going to talk about it in depth. Sunspot to a 1-0, Gwenpool to a 4-5, Dormammu's going down to a 7-10, but the cost of the final ritual goes from 3 cost to 2 cost. Black Cat's becoming a 1-5, Invisible Woman and Domino are becoming 2-4s. Mobius and Mobius, for some reason, is becoming a 3-4, probably the weirdest change of the patch. Agony becomes a 1-3, Blink becomes a 5-8, and they made the evolved thing a 4-7. I thought he already should have been, but they said this was an overlook, so maybe he wasn't working right there. Yeah, not a very eventful OTA, and we're not really going to spend any more time on that. So, moving to the Grand Arena, the changes here I think are much more significant and impactful than we saw in the regular OTA. So, Mole Man is getting a buff both in and outside of the mode from a 3-3 to a 3-4. This seems pretty deserved. Mole Man has not seemed like a very strong card. So it's nice to see him already getting a quick buff, especially while he is still available in the limited time mode. And his skill is going to be 1 cost and provide +3 power now. Herbie's skill is also receiving a nerf, going from a 3 cost to a 4 cost. There have been some changes to the ban list, as well as changes to some of the pre-constructed decks. What have they added to the ban list? Agatha, Sarah, Cannonball, Eliath, Storm, Juggernaut, and Viper. And honestly, banger choices. I think this is kind of a perfect ban list. I think they made a lot of decent choices with the ban list, but there were some omissions that I don't think made a lot of sense. And the stuff that we saw added to the ban list today, I think covers mostly everything that I would have liked to see changed. Getting rid of Sarah for the super cost reduction available on turn 4, getting Agatha out there so you're not constantly seeing turn 2 14 power into a bunch of tech cards. Cannonball just because he kind of solos a lane and wins 2 lanes if you pair him with a Fenris. Eliath just seemed like not a good thing to have in a mode where Invisible Woman is a core part of it, or is trying to be. Storm, I think, was just inherently not super fun in a mode where we have access to all this excess energy. Juggernaut, I think, is always plagued, limited time modes a bit, where he just kind of makes that final turn feel a little bit invalidated. And between Cannonball and Viper, Junk seems like it will not be nearly as effective of a strategy as it has been prior in the mode. So, bang up job on the ban list, in my opinion. I think this will lead to more interesting variety in the Grand Arena, and I'm really happy they did it now when we're at that halfway point. So if you were a little tired of the meta in the mode, now there's more room to experiment with the different stuff you can do in there and earn those rewards before it goes away next week. There are also some changes to the pre-constructed decks. The Mole Man deck got Esme, Isan, and Iron Patriot cut out from it, and added in Surge, Blue Marvel, and the Ancient One in their place. And the Doctor Doom precon lost out on Jennifer Kale, Nocturne, Gore, and Astral Projection, and had Lockjaw, White Tiger, Magneto, and Red Hulk added in those spots. Generally, I think these are probably good changes to the precons, especially for the Doom one. The Doom one felt very incoherent to me when I was playing it. And I think this gives it a little bit more of a cohesive strategy to it. With all that said, I think if you're just trying to rock it out with one of the precons, the Mr. Fantastic one is probably still the best one by a pretty decent margin. That deck is just very strong and effective and can hold up against some of the non-pre-constructed decks easier than some of your other options. Okay, so with all that news out of the way, what are the decks you might want to be playing in this post-ban environment of the Grand Arena? I've thrown together a few lists I think will be very effective in the wake of these changes. And we're going to start off with Mr. Fantastic. Now, unfortunately, there isn't a way to import deck codes into this game mode, so you will have to do it manually. Normally, I like to provide the codes, but I don't think that this mode has that functionality yet. But Mr. Fantastic has been one of the strongest heroes in the mode, to the surprise of probably no one, given that his skill is essentially Surge, and Surge is a very good card. So this deck's just trying to do the simple, strong, ongoing thing, where we are getting some cost reductions with our Mr. Fantastic skill, and we can double up some powerful ongoing effects with Onslaught or Moonstone. We have the Captain America crew with Sam, Captain America, and Captain Carter that just all have very natural positive synergy with one another. Mystique allows us to copy some of the more high impact ongoing cards, mainly Iron Man, but maybe even just a Mr. Fantastic, Goliath, or Onslaught can be pretty good as well. We're running Iron Lad for a little bit of redundancy here and getting those powerful effects out below the curve. You could consider Super Scroll in this spot depending on the metagame. If there is a lot of affliction that pops up, or you're running into a lot of mirror matches, Super Scroll is probably a very powerful card to run there, but I'm not trying to optimize for the mirror just yet. We'll see how things shake out. And you're going to want to have Cosmo here just as your base form of protection that says, okay, your Enchantress is not going to lose me the game. Ongoing has seemed to be a very strong shell throughout this mode, and it's one that I think just purely benefits from the recent additions to the ban list. Another direction you could go is Invisible Woman tech. So I opted to include a Ronin package here. The idea being we can, hide away a Maximus behind the Invisible Woman for the end of the game. We can try and clog up our opponent's hand with Master Mold to prevent them from getting their good draws. We have a variety of different tech inclusions to deal with strategies that might otherwise go taller than us, with things like Shadow King, Shang-Chi, Red Guardian, and Cosmo, all having very good targets. Supergiant can slow down certain strategies like Destroy, relying on pumping up their Deadpool, or giving you that bit of extra time to find your Cosmo against a Wong on reveal deck. Claw and Ronin are our main powerhouses in terms of getting out points, but we also have some decent 3-cost cards that accomplish a similar thing, with Gladiator being one of the biggest 3s and Copycat having that nice high roll potential. This deck also does naturally benefit from the fact that Invisible Woman is now a 2/4 as well, so that's a nice bonus addition too. So if you enjoy playing a more teched out style, I think this is a really interesting way to try that out. Then we have Human Torch Surfer. So Surfer did get hit harder by the ban list by losing out on Juggernaut. No doubt about that. That card is very strong. But if you want to play with the Human Torch, I still think Silver Surfer is probably one of the better ways to do that. So we have some quality buff targets and things like Mr. Sinister, Brood, and Sebastian Shaw. And then a plethora of ways to actually buff up our cards with Mr. Fantastic First Steps, Fastos, Silver Surfer, obviously, and the recently nerfed Gwenpool, who is still a very good card. I still think that power-wise, the Human Torch is probably one of the weaker champions, but if you like playing Silver Surfer, I think he's really not a bad home for trying something like that out in. And much like the other decks, we are going to be including Cosmo here to prevent some of those other strategies from popping off with on-reveal effects, or just to protect our own stuff from getting hated on by tech cards. Moving on to the Thing, this is a champion that I think will also benefit from the bans, namely from Agatha going away and Cannonball going away. I think it gives you a little bit more of a reason to experiment with this kind of big guys archetype. I do think this list probably is in need of a bit of further refinement. I've played it a bit and it does pretty all right, and I think it'll do a little bit better post bans. But I think there are some other ways you could experiment with it as well. Maybe running a little bit more protection. You could drop down on the Sauron, Red Skull, Enchantress stuff, and be more in favor of stuff that doesn't necessarily have as much downside. That might also let you get in a armor. Maybe you can squeeze in a 0 if you still want to run the Red Skull. There are things you can consider with it, because I haven't found the Sauron package itself to be overly valuable. It's okay, but I think there are other things you can explore in this type of archetype. But in general, big points are rather good, and I do expect that the recent changes will result in a bit less Shang-Chi possibly, and if that's the case, a deck like this is naturally well positioned to benefit from that. But if you are still seeing a lot of Shang-Chi, it might be worth removing the Sauron elements in favor of some added protection like armor and Cosmo. Moving on to probably the best champion of the bunch and the only one that got nerfed here, Herbie. Herbie, I think, has just been far and away just the absolute giga nuts in this mode. He has enabled playing decks in many different ways. My favorite way has been just sending him to the moon power-wise with Wong Nomura stuff. I found that to be very effective, and my original version of the list definitely did take a bit of damage, not only from the Herbie skill going from 3 to 4 cost, but also the banning of Cannonball, who gave us another way to just beat out a lane pretty easily. I have since adapted the deck though. The idea with the changes made here is we are using cards like Mr. Fantastic and Ravonna to provide us with some more cost reduction in the hopes that we can still do some of the powerful combo turns that were previously enabled with the Herbie skill at 3 cost. So by reducing our Ironheart or our Sage down in cost, we can still fairly easily pair them with the Herbie skill on turn 5, let's say, for example. I still have high hopes that even with the nerf to the skill, this deck will remain viable and strong, especially with the addition of Armor and Cosmo to shut down opposing tech cards that are often the opponent's only answer to you going incredibly tall in a lane with Herbie doubling. This has definitely been my favorite deck of the mode, so I'm curious to see how it shakes out in the wake of these bans. Then we have Mole Man. So Mole Man got not only a skill buff, but a buff to the card itself, so figured he's at least worth experimenting around a little bit. And we are doing so by including a powerful Victoria hand package, as well as a Patriot to help leverage those rocks. We have ways to double up on our powerful effects with things like Frigga and Moonstone to copy, using Misery to get extra value off of our hood, which naturally benefits a lot from these Victoria hands and the Patriot stuff. Surge and Mr. Fantastic provide us with more cost reduction shenanigans, as well as a little bit of bonus power. Shadow King to deal with those super go tall threats from the opponent using green power, and Infinity Ultron, who I'm not certain is going to be optimal in this list, but he's just kind of a lot of fun and works well with Victoria hand stuff. But I could definitely also see an approach to this deck where you cut him in place of another tech card, maybe like a Shang-Chi or a Cosmo or some other form of interaction. But I think Infinity Ultron's really fun, so I figured we'd at least give him a shot. And then the last list I'm going to cover here is Jet's Phoenix Force. So not for the faint of heart, very much for the all-in combo player enjoyer, but this is another one that I think will probably benefit a bit from the bans, if for no other reason than there being less Cannonball Fenris Wolf stuff around. You make some big dead pools, you make some big multiple men, you make a big Human Torch, you move it around the board, you copy it with the Taskmaster. It's pretty straightforward, but the journey to getting there involves some, complex lines that make you feel like a real big-brained combo player. So if that's more your style of play, I think using the Carnage hero is an interesting way to enable that kind of strategy. Now, you might have noticed there was one hero skipped over here, and that is Dr. Doom. And as a Doom enjoyer, that does make me a little sad, but I do think Doom is probably the hero that suffered the most from these changes, just because he wasn't doing that great already, and he was kind of getting hard carried by Agatha being, a thing that's pretty big on turn 2, and he can't do that anymore. So I think if Doom ends up being viable post changes, it's going to take a little bit to see how the meta reshapes around the new changes that were made, and then Doom can try and adapt to that. I do like the changes they made in the precon. I think it makes it a bit more coherent than it was previously, so that's a plus. But in terms of a custom Doom deck, I think you're going to want to wait and see what the other decks are doing a bit before you figure out the best way to build this character. And yeah, that's going to wrap it up for this video. So let me know what you think about the Grand Arena changes in the comments below and how you've been enjoying the mode overall. Personally, I've had a fair amount of fun with it, and I think especially in a 2-week mode like this, getting an update on the ban list that will shake things up a little halfway through is a really optimal time to do it if that feels necessary. And as far as my first impressions go, I think they made some pretty good choices on what to change. So let me know what you think in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, remember to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.